So the recommendation, as was taught by me by my teachers, is the continual study of Yama Niyama. Just to give you a brief example, like the first one we're going to be looking at in the next lecture is called ahimsa. Ahimsa simply means non-violence. The next one after that is satya, being truthful. We could look at simply just non-violence and say, okay, not to be violent, not to, think violently or think, traumatic or not traumatic, disturbing thoughts to ourselves and others. Not to talk in a attacking, offensive kind of way, and not to obviously act in this kind of way as well. We're like, well, that seems fairly obvious. But there's a lot of nuance to be found within this. And ideally, the more that we look into all of these and the more potentially books that you read surrounding all of these, because there's many teachers that teach upon various aspects of all of this, the more they start to really become alive and the more we see how multifaceted they are. And there's so many things that we can be doing that can help support the practice of each one of the Yama and Niyama. Now, as you listen to some of these talks, you might be like, well, I know this, or even if you look, ideally as we go through the talks, it will kind of awaken some aspiration to look into maybe one avenue that you maybe haven't thought of before. And this is a good place to be. Ideally, as I said, the recommendation is to continually study these Yama Niyama. And with the continuing studying of them, with the continuing embodying of them, it becomes like a kind of a natural filtration process. And this is through this repetition. There's a word again in Sanskrit called abhyasa. Abhyasa means practice. Sometimes it can mean practice, depending on context. It can also mean repetition. It's the moving over and over of something. And the more we repeat something, the more we do it over and over, the more it becomes instinctive and very easy to access. And that's what we are looking for with a lot of these wonderful teachings within Yama Niyama as well. That it just becomes a natural state of play. And it is our natural state of play. It wasn't as if we were created bad and commanded well by the likes of these teachings. This is our true nature. And this is something really is kind of remembering who we are, renewing our membership with a kind of a balanced and harmonious life. Patanjali even found them pertinent a couple of thousand years ago, and I'm sure maybe you might agree nowadays the world kind of really needs embodied, harmonious, serene, benevolent teachings to kind of keep blood running through the heart of humanity. So with repetition, with more continual awareness, I often use the idea of where we get to the stage of just naturally, and sometimes it's nice to even think about it in a kind of more conscious level, of any situation that's presented to ourselves, of simply, what would the Buddha do? What would whoever you idolize or whatever goddess or god or deity you revere, what would they do? What would Mother Teresa do? What would St. Francis of Assisi do? What would Gandhi do? And that can be quite a nice way of just kind of going, okay, well, can I move towards that more awakened, more embodied, more heartfelt state of consciousness? And Yama Niyama, we will find as we move through these, will help us to be a little bit more awake, a little bit more conscious. And that's why I often like to call, usually when I present these in teacher training courses, Yama Niyama, I simply call it a course in conscious living. And it's a nice succinct way of looking at it. It's just simply a course in conscious living. So, there is no difference then in the sense of, as I said, starting with the big picture. If someone said to you, well, let's approach our yoga practice, in a more peaceful, benevolent, harmonious and serene manner, and do that not only in our yoga practice, but off the mat as well. It's like, well, where do we start? How do I think more peaceful thoughts? How do I find more comfort in uncomfortable positions? When the challenge starts, that's where my practice truly begins. And how do I embrace this practice in an open state as opposed to a constricted state? Patanjali then, brings this in, Sadhanapada talks about this, and he brings this in with the teachings of Yama Niyama. Starts with the big picture, that's be more awakened, be more peaceful, be more serene, and breaking it down into digestible, bite-sized pieces with Yama Niyama. And we will find with the teachings of these, as I said, where I'm sure most of you already know them there, as we move through, you'll be like, yeah, I'm aware of this. But how much time do we actually really spend on reflecting in these? So the idea being is that we repeat the study of these a lot, and we look to people who we feel have perfected some of these life skills, we could even call them. And one of the beautiful things as well is the Patanjali talks about what's called siddhis. And a siddhi, S-I-D-D-H-I, in the English way of looking at it, a siddhi is basically a paranormal power, like a superpower. And he says with perfection of each of these, that we will essentially attain what may be perceived as some kind of paranormal power, some superhuman ability. And so it's not just to say that Patanjali is coming and saying, don't do this. Because then it would come very close to almost being, where do you get 10 recommendations? The 10 commandments, obviously. And that's where it does really seem as if there's a moralizer, as if there's a commander. It's like, and Moses said, God said, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not, etc., etc. And rather than saying thou shalt not, it's giving a recommendation of saying, with the practice of non-violence, all beings will abandon hostility in your presence. And so there is a goal to being non-violent. With the practice of truthfulness, all of your words will come into realization. All of these kind of things. So there's a kind of a light at the end of the tunnel as opposed to just being told what not to do.